Namaskaram, Kanika.
Namaskaram, Abhaya. So good to see you.
Namaskaram. Very nice to see you. How are you?
I am glad. I'm glad that we're finally doing this. And even though we had to push it a little bit, but for very good reason. So I'm glad we're finally doing this. So before we begin, I want to introduce Abhaya here. And I don't know if you went through my stories. I did list out, the many wonderful things that she's doing. But I'll quickly go over it now as well. So, of course, Abhaya is an Isha Hatha Yoga teacher. But other than that, she's doing multiple other things. So she's like juggling many balls in the air and doing wonderfully at all of that. So the reason we wanted to do this was because a lot of times I get asked, is it financially sustainable to become an Isha teacher and do a teacher training and then teach after? Should I quit my job and do this? And of course, we've always maintained that we're not the right people for you to, for us, it's not right for us to give you that advice. It is something that you have to arrive at on your own. However, we can help you out with examples of what different teachers are doing. There is no fixed format to this as such. And one of the best examples of managing different things is what Abhaya is doing with Yoga Netri and her different sort of avenues as well. So, which is why I thought that, this is the best opportunity for us to talk about how to go about this and learn from someone who's been doing it so well. So, not only is she an Isha Hatha Yoga teacher, she's also a very, very accomplished photojournalist who's worked with the likes of the international agency Reuters, very well established and respected. She's she's also a professor at Symbiosis. On top of that, she's also a consultant, a brand consultant. And of course, she's the founder of Yoga Netri. So that is some sort of portfolio you're carrying there, Abhaya. Like, it's amazing. I must say that, it's wonderful to see someone manage so many things.
Thank you, Kanika. Firstly, that is a very, very lovely introduction for me. Thank you so much. You made it sound much more exciting than it is. Maybe it is as exciting, but that introduction definitely does justice to it. Thank you for that. I think even for me, it's been quite interesting because a lot of people who are interested in yoga, their first questions are about, is this full-time, or how do you make it work? Or is this your career, or have you quit your real life? Or, so everybody has questions around, okay, fantastic that you took this leap and jump and you decided to do a yoga course, but not now what about your actual life? Like, how do you make ends meet? And that's a question that comes up very, very often. They think a lot of times yoga or teaching yoga is kind of looked at as a side job or as something else that you do in the background of something else. So, and for the longest time, yoga actually for me has, for the last 3 years, I have been running Yoga Netri full time. It has been my full time occupation, profession, everything. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot of time, effort, energy to put it out there. It's not just about teaching in the morning. The whole day kind of goes in making sure that people know about it, or you have registration process for getting people in, and finance, like every other business that you know of, every department that it may have. As a yoga teacher, you are running all of those departments on your own. Whether you know marketing or not, you've got to figure it out. Whether you know finance or not, you have to do your own accounts. Whether you know how to socialize, meet people, let them know about what you're doing. So all of those things get packed into one. So I definitely wanted to talk about this and talk about it with respect of how I'm doing it. Many people have different ways and different avenues of teaching. So for me, it's slightly different.
Yeah. So for those of you who are sort of curious about this, so there are different ways in which you can approach teaching. So one would be, you can, of course, have your own studio and organize regular workshops and classes, which is what a lot of teachers do. However, there are also teachers who are operating independently. So we'll see, if in the future we can have a chat with somebody who's doing that. But tell me, how's the experience been? It's been what, more than 4 years since Yoga Netri happened?
Yeah,
Yeah.
about.
So 4 years of sort of nurturing and growing. It's like your baby. If you go to if you don't already follow Abhaya, but if you go to Yoga Netri's Instagram page, you will see that there's such a beautiful aesthetic to her Instagram page, which is what really impressed me. You know, when I knew nothing about you, and I would see your posts and I would follow you on Instagram, and I would see your posts, and I would instantly know that this is a Yoga Netri post, because there's such a characteristic aesthetic, and it's been built so beautifully that that itself shows the attention to detail. So I can't even imagine like how that is sort of trickled into the other aspects of Yoga Netri. You want to talk a little bit about that? How did that happen? And
So I think that it actually stems, firstly, a very big thank you to my team. There are a very dedicated group of people who work with me to make this happen. But it stems really from the very core essence of yoga itself, because it is about paying attention to the detail. You know, designing that or putting work into branding, for me, it's not really hard work, because it's enjoyable, in the sense the same amount of detail that you spend to, or attention, you know, when you really pay attention to something, you know what's needed for it. So, and it flows quite effortlessly in that way, when there is a certain sense of that's feeling right, and it comes from that attention and beauty and detail, which is what yoga brings. You know, when you start practicing, that's how attentive you become to, let's say, what you're eating, or how things are behaving within you, or how the climate is affecting you, or how your practices are changing within you. It's the same thing that comes also on Instagram. Like, I remember when we were at the beginning trying to figure out what kind of a voice would we like to have online. I remember my brief to myself about creating the page was, when somebody sees this page, they should be able to experience yoga visually. You know, what could that feel like when you were in practice? How could that feel within? When they look at the post, that's what it should say. And keeping that as the guideline, we designed everything else around it. Does it feel like soothing and easy to the eye? Does it feel inviting? Does it feel like it's there's something beyond, you know? So, and keeping that, we kind of moved ahead with it. We also picked like 3 colors, which were for mental, physical, and spiritual. We identified 3 sets of practices, because we also understood how people came in. They came in with very different needs. Somebody came in with, say, I have back issues, or I have mobility issues, or I have physical related problems. There were people who came in with, I'm not able to handle stress, or I have depression, or I'm having anxiety attacks, and the approach is very different for them. And there are also people who come in just as seekers, seeking to go beyond, go into deeper states of meditation. And having identified that, I realized that not everybody who comes to learn yoga is the same, and they need to be given and offered those channels to find themselves in that journey. So, using the branding, we kind of incorporated this philosophy by dividing the colors up, and each color was to represent each part, mental, physical, and emotional, or spiritual, and that's how we did that. So this process took a really long time to finally come and take shape, but I think it finally has done that, and it's working now, that it's already out on the page, and it's working now.
yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And I'm so glad, that there's such a deep philosophy behind the aesthetic, and sort of, each post is very well thought out. And this connects very beautifully to something I wanted to ask, because, yesterday I got a question from somebody after I'd put up the Instagram stories that, that we were going to be talking about running a yoga business, building a brand. And one of the Anna's message, he said very humbly that, I just feel that this goes against what Sadhguru is stands for, because you're talking about yoga as a business and building a brand. And I felt that, and I did respond to that, and I said that, I feel that it doesn't, because, and I'll give you my 2 cents on this. I feel that it doesn't. One, because Sadhguru's never said that he's against, running a business. And unfortunately, we always attach a very negative connotation whenever the word business comes in. It always gives this impression of a profit chasing, money hungry person who only wants to get from his customers and not provide. Whereas if you look at it, a business can be such a beautifully transactional platform, right? So if you're offering something and you're obviously doing an energy exchange in that sense, right? So you're offering something as profound as, say, yoga. However, there is a certain energy exchange that happens, which is also very important for us to be able to offer this. So one is, of course, it has to be sustainable. There is a requirement to have teachers all over the world and take Isha Hatha Yoga to the world. It's not going to happen without people being able to sustain their livelihood. And the second thing is, building a brand doesn't necessarily mean, that you're just putting a fancy packaging on things and forgetting what the true motive behind it is. Like you said, your Instagram page, the design is so beautiful, but it's very well thought out. There's such a deep spiritual significance behind it as well. And it connects so beautifully to your entire philosophy around this. Have you gotten any comments around this or any questions around this?
I actually, honestly, I think in the beginning, when let's say when I started on the spiritual journey, I think I too was conflicted in this particular phase, where I also believed that, if I took the route of making a business or making money, I was less spiritual per se, or I was not authentic to my practice, or this was so profound that it had nothing to do with money, or let's believe that money is evil, in short. Making money was evil. And I also believed that for a really long time. And I realized that because that belief was so strong, it was also hindering my process of growth. Because as soon as, say, a larger opportunity would open up, I would, my belief system of money is evil would act up. And immediately I would say, no, it's fine. I'll do it for free. It's okay. It's fine.
I have had a same experience with myself, like that mental dialogue that goes in, and you find yourself withdrawing.
Yes. Yeah. So now, for a moment, I just want you to consider two possibilities, okay? And this happened to me further along in my journey. One possibility, suppose you say that money is evil, I don't want anything to do with it. I just want to offer this profound science of yoga to everyone, and that's all I want to do with my life. That's it. You can do that very well. There are yogis who live off nothing and they do that. Now, given that stance, if you stay there, okay, you're not you. When you have no money, you can't put money into marketing, you can't grow, your business doesn't grow, you don't have a studio, you can't rent places out. You can reach maybe the 5 people who know you. Maybe not 5, but 10 people. Or let's say, even if the word goes out and you become extremely famous as the yogi who sits under the tree and teaches, you suppose have 50 people. With the dream as big as wanting to reach, say, 7-8 billion people in the world, one yogi sitting under the tree teaching 10 people, accomplishing anything. Second scenario, you choose to take the path of a business. You put in investment, you put in money, you decide that I'm going to put not only money but also my energy into it and have a larger than yourself vision. Instead of just thinking about myself, if I kept my vision large enough to incorporate everybody in it, suddenly there is a lot more flow of energy that flows and includes everyone in the process. When suppose if I hire a person to do design work, or hire a studio, or hire staff, or I hire, say, social media or anything, all of these people who come in contact with the business all grow. Their families grow. Their experience grows. I grow with them. So the number of lives that I'm impacting being in a business versus me being the solo person under a tree are far more. Is yoga not reaching more people through this? And then the question of ethics about money comes in, like, is money evil or is money good or bad? Essentially, if you choose to keep your intentions or your goal of making money just for your own well-being and nobody else's, like, I want to do this for myself and nothing else. You have nothing greater, larger than yourself as your goal. With money, then maybe it is selfish. But my goal of making money is to take it to more and more and more till there is no more. And for that, if there is no money, there is going to be the wheel is not going to turn. I will be sitting there by myself.
Yeah.
So I honestly took a time to took a lot of time to get my head around it. Initially, I would say, oh, no, this class is too expensive. It's okay. Nobody will pay. Let's just keep it half price. Or I'll discount it.
Yeah.
Or, you know what, for you guys, it's just free. Don't worry. Just bring everybody. I just want to give it for all. Now, what happens in that scenario is when I undervalue or undermine the price of what I'm offering. Like suppose, if suppose it's a Surya Kriya class and I say, you know what, it's a free session for you all. Just show up. You know, that's all. I will offer it for free out of my love and compassion for the world. The thing is, the person who comes in, firstly, does not know what is being given. You know, they've come in as new people. They have no idea. They've only seen or heard of yoga on television or read about it somewhere. So they don't know the value of what's happening. They may come the first day, they may think, oh, it was nice, but whatever, let me think about it. Maybe I'll go late the next day, or you know what, third day I'm too sleepy, I'll just skip, maybe I'll just go to the next day.
Yeah.
And you know, and that commitment sort of wavers off. Suppose you made it for the classes and you made sure you showed up. Because you paid nothing for it, chances are you're going to be like, oh, it was free anyway, forget it. Like,
absolutely.
Why do I need to practice it?
Yeah.
And you drop the practice. For the people who've come free and learn things for free, like for example, Isha Kriya is free online for everybody to practice. Most people will be willing to travel all the way to ashram, do one extended program, book tickets, do other things, but not do the three free things available that we already have. So the value of money, like suppose I charge something at 2,500 or 3,500, it is not actually the monetary value of that class. It is the monetary value that I'm assigning to how valuable you think this practice should be, or the person coming in should value it.
Yeah.
And in my belief, it should always be a little higher than what you're comfortable with, so that you understand that what is being given to you is no joke. It's very, very profound. Because you don't know it yet, you pay money to understand the value. But once you understand it, no money can tell you the value of what you're being given.
Absolutely. And that is so beautifully said, Abhaya. That is so beautifully articulated. And, you know, I saw a few messages coming in from other teachers as well. And they were saying the exact same thing. Because I went through this mental struggle, you know, when initially I started my first class, like, of course, post friends and family. When I announced my first public class, it was a free introductory session. 20 people signed up, not even one showed up. Not even one. The only two people who showed up were my friends. And of course, I was crestfallen. I was heartbroken that, you know, how can you not value this that I'm offering and that is, you know, being offered. Until I realized that, you know, somewhere we do not attach value to things that are available to us, say, you know, free of any investment from our side in that sense. So, of course, we do have free sessions off and on as well. But however, I've realized that for people to really value what they're receiving, there needs to be something that's keeping them. And I feel that about the Hatha Yoga teacher training as well, that there is a reason that so a lot of participants say that, you know, it's really expensive or it's a little expensive for a 5-month program. And I remember that was my first thought as well when I found out about the program. I knew nothing about Isha before that. But looking back, one, I feel that what was offered was so priceless compared to the amount that the fee that we paid for it. Even if it was doubled, I would do it in a heartbeat. That said, I also feel that that contributes to the commitment of the participants as well, because once you've invested a certain amount, of course, you know, you also would feel more committed to stick it out through the intensity of that training. So yeah, thank you for that. It was so beautifully put, and it really helps me sort of organize things in my head as well, because a lot of times, you know, there would be these thoughts coming in that, you know, where does one find that balance between thinking of it as a business as opposed to holding it as the profound wisdom and science that it is, and marrying the two sometimes.
Conflict that you're talking about, I was hit with this conflict straight up as soon as I came out of school. I came out of school and I went to Nagpur. Now Nagpur is a really small town. Most people don't have a very high spending power, in the sense they're not the kind of people who go and throw money. There's not much to do here, you know. It's a very close, small city, and I entered the place and I was like, okay, so my class is say 2,500. After the first 2 classes, I had 0 people coming in. And I started to get like unsolicited advice about, beta, your class is too expensive. Beta, I think you should look at the market. Beta, look at the other guy's class. Look at the pricing here. Do that. And I think you are not being practical about it. And I heard all of that. For a few months, it didn't work. It just didn't work because 500 meters from where I was, there was a guy teaching yoga for free every single day from 7 to 8. 800 or 1 kilometer away from where I was, there was another guy teaching it for free, very well renowned for the last 50 years. 2 kilometers from where I was, there was another lady who was teaching for like 700 a month. And in that sort of a space, when I was saying for 3 days, pay 2,500, people thought this was a joke, like this would not last. And for a really long period of time, I had to stick through it. I was like, okay, no, I don't know how business works. This is the first time I have started something of my own. Maybe it will fail. There was a lot of self-doubt. There was a lot of questioning. Am I doing the right thing? Did I get into the wrong place? Do I not understand how pricing works or how markets work? And then this thought came to me that I was like, if I lower the price of what I'm offering, I'm also lowering the value of what I'm offering. I'm saying that this can be easily bought at, say, this price. So that means, it's cheap. And it's not cheap. What I'm giving is extremely, extremely profound. And until if somebody did understand the value, there have been instances when people have walked in with a very deep sense of knowing that I need to do this. There is no conversation about a price in those situations. I will not even bring it up because I understand that this person knows what is being given here. And there's no need to have a conversation about price. But it's really about that transaction wherein you understand that I'm putting in my everything. So you put in your everything and show up here. So until there is no monetary exchange, most people don't get that.
Yeah, very true. That is so true. Wow, yeah, this is addressing some of those things which I have personally felt that tug of war in my head. Now, it's really interesting that in these times of Corona, now that there are no classes happening, no foundation classes are happening, no programs are happening, independent programs are happening. And of course, I've gotten a few messages that, how are you managing financially? It's really funny, but people feel very comfortable asking such questions. But so it's a little tricky. It's definitely tricky, but it's a very different situation as well. It's unprecedented. Nobody anticipated something like this. So obviously neither did Isha Hatha Yoga teachers. They had no idea that, something like this would hit them. And there are teachers, of course, who have their jobs and who are doing yoga on weekends and offering classes on weekends. But there are also teachers like you and me who are doing this full time. And there is definitely a certain situation, unprecedented situation where, we have to just adapt to the fact that live sessions cannot happen. And of course, the foundation is supporting. We've started online sessions and all of that. But in times like this, I have grown to really appreciate the fact that it is not just yoga alone that is my source of livelihood or sustenance. And there are other avenues that I have as well. So since you've done that, like whether it's, photography, whether it is brand consulting, or whether it is, your educational, your role as an educationist. So was that a conscious move on your part to sort of, in some sense, hedge your approach to this, or was it something that naturally, organically happened?
See, honestly, I think when I came out of school, I was very clear that yoga is all I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. I had been trained in multiple other fields. I had experience and job experience and everything. But I put everything aside. I said, everything else goes on hold. This is what I'm doing. I'm starting a business, and whether it works or not, this is what I'm doing. And I stuck with that for a while. But at some point, I realized that while the nature of any startup or any sort of freelance work or even in yoga, your cycles go up and down. You will have periods of extensive amounts of work, and then you will have periods of no work. Yeah. But my expenses don't have cycles like that. My expenses usually have cycles like this, or possibly going upward like this. So, like rent has to be paid. Food has to be bought. There has to be fuel in the car, or there will be maintenance things. And there will be Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi doesn't come 1 month and says, okay, next month I don't need to be paid for.
Yeah.
So my expenses were going like this, my income was going like this. And I realized that because of this cyclical nature, or of income going up and down, it was adding an extra layer of pressure on making sure that my classes made this much money. And as soon as that happened, that conflict that we're talking about between keeping it as a pure offering and making it into a business started to come up. And it was, that friction was coming up where I was like, I don't want that pressure. I want to teach whether it's one person or I want to teach whether it's 40 people. It shouldn't matter, because how I am and who I am should not change at all. So I don't want it ever to affect me whether there are 3 people in class or 30 people in class, So I decided that I want to take the financial pressure or the burden off from yoga. Like I want to make money off somewhere else so that when I sit to teach, I just teach. It is not, burdened with this feeling of, will I make it to rent this month or not? Or do I have anything left? Or how will I make it to next week? And that pressure, I just released it from yoga. I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether I have one person or nobody. If it doesn't matter who shows up or if nobody shows up. If nobody shows up, I do my sadhana. If a lot of people show up, I teach them. If one person shows up, I teach one person. And this came with another combined thing. There was a part where I promised to myself when I started teaching. This was a commitment I made to myself, which I said that I don't have the authority. I don't give myself the liberty ever to say no. If a person walks through the door and wants to learn yoga, I don't have that authority to utter the word no. My answer can be yes. Maybe I can reschedule it. Maybe I can find another slot. Maybe I can say, hey, let's work it out this way. But I cannot deny the possibility of yoga to anybody. So this was a very, very this was grounding for me, because I realized that just this one statement made sure that there were situations where there was only one person, and I couldn't say no. So, and that kept going. So in the meantime, I decided, okay, I definitely need other sources of income, and let's figure out what can work. I couldn't go back to a very structured 9-to-5 job. I'm not cut out for that at all. Like, I'm not the kind of person who can sit on a desk and have tasks delivered, things like that. I love challenges. I love a new situation and something completely unexpected. So like Corona for most people is a huge source of anxiety. For me, it's like the new best challenge that's come up. I'm like, I love it, There are new rules, it's a new game, it's a new environment, it's a new market. Let's play. It's just play, like you just have to crack how this game works and make it work. So I decided to do the same. I was like, okay, what can I do with, I have photojournalistic experience, so I maybe cannot work full time, but I can do freelance assignments for international magazines or publications that want work from India. So my work days were very specific. Maybe I had to go out in the field for a month, or maybe like 15 days, come back, edit the work and send it out. And because it was cyclical, I could manage it with my yoga career as well, or yoga business as well. It didn't affect it. So similarly, I realized that, there were multiple things like this I could do. I started taking up more branding related work. I enjoy doing that, and I realized might as well, offer that to other people. So we started doing branding related work for smaller agencies and other people who needed that. And as soon as things start to get repetitive, I need like a boost, I need a small amount of challenge, to fuel myself. And I guess that's what drives the other passions. So I found a job with Symbiosis, and as a professor. I had never been a professor before until very recently. And that was a strange story. So I went to, I met this lady at a cafe, and she was sitting on the other side and working. And I overheard that she was talking about, she was talking to her students, and she was a teacher and guiding them about some assignment. So after she got up, I went to her and I was like, hi, are you a teacher at Symbiosis? She said, yeah. I said, well, I've been looking to teach, and could you maybe connect me to how this process works? So something happened, and whatever, we went in for this trial round for teaching. And I go there and I start teaching. This was basics of marketing or something like that. And I start the presentation, and the lady sitting in front of me, she was my professor for marketing 7 years ago in the same college. So I'm looking at her, and she's looking at me, and she looks confused because she can't recognize me, but I recognize her. So, and that's my professor sitting, so I'm kind of like panicking because I can possibly not be better than her. And she's been teaching for the last 20 years. So it turns out that she was quitting and she was leaving and switching jobs after 20 years, and I was to take that role up. So, so we did that, and within 2 to 3 days, I figured every job has a certain set of like uh, a grid, a template, a rule book. You've got to figure out what the rules of that sphere are, what the rules of that world is, and just run with it. It's like a game. Tennis has a different set of rules, and badminton has a different set of rules. So every job role has its own grid lines. Once you understand where the grid lines are, you can play. And so I began to play, and it was fantastic. Like, I fell in love with teaching kids, and there were I shouldn't call them kids because they're like 19, 20-year-olds, and it was great fun because we kind of explored subjects together. We went in through marketing and branding and photography and visual communication and aesthetic, and we did lots of fun assignments. So I was learning on the go. I decided, okay, I will not be the teacher that I didn't like in my college. I will be the teacher that they can relate to and remember when they leave college. So I designed games for them. I designed activities in which they could expand their horizons and think of innovative solutions and come up with things like that. And this kind of challenge is what keeps me going, because I'm like, yes, what can I do which can move forward, which can break the current norm of what is not working and find a new way to move around it. So I guess that's something that stays common. Like, even in photography and journalism, that's the same thing. Where exactly is the stagnation happening, and how can I change that? How can I bring a new perspective to it? How can I tell the story in a different way? So, and that, I think, is also something that, these sort of things keep me energized because of yoga. I know that there is a certain stability and grounding very firmly there. So I think Sadhguru talks about it a lot. Like, once you're based in yoga, you can then kind of do anything. You can be thrown anywhere, and you could do anything, anywhere, in any situation, any role. And that's how I feel. Like, I'm no longer overwhelmed by new possibilities or new opportunities or new rules or new environments or new people, like, or even corona or anything, because once that foundation is set, nothing can affect you, nothing shakes you. You throw me anywhere and it'll move on.
Survive and thrive, actually.
Sorry?
Yeah, I said you'll survive, and not just survive, thrive.
Yeah, pretty much. And I don't think I was that kind of person before. I was a person who was very, very anxious, and like, will this work, will this not work, what will people think, and maybe I'll fail, and I don't have the strength, and all of this was also me. But after yoga, now I don't have that sense of anxiety or sort of self-doubt or fear or lack of confidence. Of course, I don't know how to teach, but I'm winging it, somehow. And the kids seem to love it. Like, we have a fantastic time, and it's great fun.
This is amazing. And you know what? Like, a lot of people are messaging saying that this kind of clarity is so inspiring. And like you said, Sadhguru speaks about this. I think he quotes one of the shlokas from Krishna on the battlefield, where he tells Arjuna that first establish yourself in yoga, I think is that what he says. And that's exactly what is showing in how beautifully you're able to sort of devote yourself in all these different aspects and sort of thrive in each one of them. And I completely, part of your experience I resonate with as well, because this is how I came out of training. I was like, I'm going to teach. And in fact, I didn't even think I was going to teach. I was so scared of actually organizing classes, and I was just so overwhelmed with the expectation of I had put on myself for a teacher that, I felt that I see the teachers in our school, and there's no way I'll ever be of that standard that is acceptable. And so I was so scared of actually going ahead and organizing a class and expecting people to pay and come and attend, that I was almost shocked when people were willing to come and pay the fee, program fee and everything. And that went on for a couple of years, almost like I feel like the first year and a half, 2 years, I constantly struggled with sort of, wanting to do this with grace and elegance, and also wanting to make it something that I wasn't struggling with on the financial end, because like you said, the moment that anxiety creeps in about wanting to meet your basic income and be able to meet your costs every month, it puts a pressure on you, and you're not, and I feel that in myself also at times that, I'm not doing this the way I want to do it. And which is why when I started consulting, I used to work in consulting till 2017. So when I started taking up freelance projects, it really took the edge off of sort of, putting that expectation on just my classes. And I felt that that was such a revelation to me, because I realized that it just completely flowers into something else when you don't have that stress of making sure that you're also making ends meet. But I feel like sometimes there's also grace, of course. Not sometimes, in fact there is
always.
There have been times, I'm like, last day of registrations, there are like 2 participants. I'm like, oh god, I've like spent more money in marketing this than I will get, and suddenly there will be like 5 sign-ups or something. So a lot of times I'm just like really grateful for that grace that is there, which is always there. So I feel like some sense of that relaxation and ease around things also comes from knowing that there is larger things at play. So nice. So tell me this now, when it comes to sort of, if you had to give advice to someone who's looking at expanding their avenues and is looking at sort of, managing different things with balance and ease, what would you say are like 3 things that they really need to, it's like sort of 3 thumb rules in that sense?
First thing, obviously, like Sadhguru says, like Krishna says, ground yourself in yoga. Because when you are firstly grounded in yoga, anything else is possible. Anything. You could go to, I was today, in fact, just looking at it, right from Steve Jobs to like any single person who's reached the peaks and heights of the point where they have influence and can change the world. All of them at some point in their life have had contact or a communication with a spiritual aspect or a guru or a being of this nature, somewhere or the other. If you look at it, nobody who's at that level of power and influence at a global level, they haven't gone untouched from spirituality. Something has come. Like for example, at Steve Jobs' funeral, they distributed autobiography for yogi to every single person who attended. Now, a person of that caliber is saying, I am died, but this is here for you to take it forward.
I think he also went to Neem Keroli Baba's ashram due to his youth, right? Yeah.
So every single person, if you truly want to do something more than just survive, if your vision is larger than just your own, I will marry, have kids, have a house, car, and that's all you want to do, that's also fine. No judgment about that. But if you have a vision larger than that or greater than that, where you think this is impossible to do, but you want to do that or achieve that, first yoga. That's the starting point.
That is so beautiful, yeah.
I think the second one would be maybe to kind of, I've learned this honestly from my husband. I was a person who was very, very, I would get freaked out by everything. Like, oh, the line is not straight, let me just fix that, or this is not gone at the right time, or the email had to be going at 8 a.m. or something like that. I was always that kind of person who wanted it done the way it has to be done. And when he came into my life, he kind of just introduced life to me as just play. He treats it as a game. He treats it as lightly as it should be taken. So when I freak out about these things, he's a very gentle reminder and a very constant reminder to play, like to just simply play. And this is a game, and you just got to have fun while doing it. So while you may have a big dream and may have a very big vision or a big sort of thing that you're wanting to achieve and go for it, but don't forget to have fun while doing it. What's the point? What's the point of getting there when you realize that the journey there was so miserable that you hated it all along? So whether it is designing something or whether it is like, making your registration notes or making like notes or doing accounting or finance, like it has to be enjoyable. It has to be something that you participated in and you didn't regret spending that time. doing it. So not every task is maybe earth-shatteringly a breakthrough. Like maybe doing the dishes is not like that. But if you take it as play, if you just take it lightly, like okay, fine, let's time myself. I'm going to do this in the next 10 minutes. I'm going to play this really awesome song, and let's do it together. And it's play. It's not as dreadful anymore. It's not as boring anymore. So I think the third one would be, this advice is from a very close friend of mine, my childhood friend. I was going through a really low period where I was just stooping very low, where I was like, okay, I'm good for nothing is working for me, and it happens to the best of the best. And I was at one of my lows, and I gave him a call, and he lives in Switzerland, and I was like, hey, I haven't spoken to you for months, but I'm having a shit day, and I just need to say that. And he's like, what's up? And he's like, I'm not going to say it's going to get better, because that's bullshit. So he gave me this piece of advice where he's like, life is not really about these big things. It's just having these small challenges for yourself, like small little things that you decide. Like I have a task, like I'm going to, let's say, learn how to play the guitar in the next 40 days. That's a small challenge, and that's what keeps you going. As many things as you can, and that's also a way to explore and live life to the fullest. Like, why limit yourself to, I will only do this? So he's like, I bought this music pad sort of a thing, and I'm learning how to make music on that, and that's my new challenge. One fine day he decided, I'm going to do stand-up comedy in the middle of Switzerland, where he doesn't even get their jokes. And that was his challenge. And he went out there, weekend after weekend, and it did work. That was besides the point. But the fact that he did, and he put himself out there and went after that little task that he had assigned for himself, made him experience a larger slice of life. It just gave him something more than I went to work, came back, and that was it. So, and that is what I had lost for a period of time, where I was like, no, you know what, nothing's working. I want nothing to do, and this is it.
Yeah.
And I slowly began. I was like, okay, maybe I started with 10 years back, I used to sing, and I used to love singing, so maybe I'll start that again. And it was such a big mountain at that point. How will I do this? Maybe my voice is gone. I can't do this anymore. And I was like, okay, let's just sign up for the first session. We'll see. And turned out brilliantly. And I'm singing every single day. So I would say just small little things that give you more of life. But giving it a certain timeline, giving it a certain structure, not saying I will write a book one day and then never really getting to it. Saying I will write a book one day, that one day happens to be 1 year from now. Or I will do this and I would like to finish it in the next 20 minutes. So that keeps you sort of going. There has to be some structure to it, but also wildness to it. Like I want to do things are as wild as I want to live in Japan for a year or two. And I believe I will do that someday. I just don't know when yet. So,
wow. Wow, this is so inspiring, Abhaya. I feel like you could be like a motivational speaker as well if you wanted to. Probably like 6 months down the line, you could be doing that. Given your sort of energy and your drive, I'm sure you will. So this is so cool.
I'm feeling
I'm feeling like this new surge of energy just watching you talk about this. And I feel like more often than not, what is happening right now, like a lot of people, and I don't mean this, oh, these people are suffering, we're okay. Everybody's going through different kinds of sort of, anxieties around this, or different areas of suffering in that sense. There are people who are, of course, feeling threatened, that feeling scared that they might lose their jobs. Some might be getting scared that, they're going to lose their increment. I feel another thing which is, sort of, gives you that safety net in some senses, that if you have multiple avenues, I'm not saying it in a safety net sort of way exactly, but there are different aspects of your life which are fulfilling you in more ways than one. And I don't just mean this financially, but what I realized was from the first 1.5 years of making yoga my only priority, my highs and lows were completely dependent on that. There were participants, there were registrations, program went well, I was happy. If it wasn't going well, it would also sink, So I realized that it became very, very variable for me. So realizing that there needs to be more that you're doing in that sense, that is also feeding your soul and also making you feel like there's growth in other aspects is also important. So things like you mentioned, like, singing, dancing, whether it's a freelance project that you're doing or whether it's just taking on these small projects on your own. Like, for example, now Corona has given us an opportunity to actually work on areas that we had previously neglected due to lack of time or commitment or whatever, right? For me personally, it was actually working on creating content for social media, because I would do it in spurts. It would come some energy and then, again, fizzle out. And that's why I've noticed this in myself, that it has been in some sense a blessing in disguise, because you have this opportunity to really relook at things and go at it with a fresh approach as well. Now, I know that we've been talking a lot of serious, inspiring stuff. We'll do one more question about that before we do a surprise fun section. And I don't know if you've got a chance to see some of the previous slides, but I've sort of sprung this on the guests a little bit towards the end. So we'll do one more question. I'll just quickly scroll to see if somebody's asked about totally can be a motivational speaker, and Ananya saying. So Abhaya, I really think you should do this. Please. Okay, I'm just scrolling that if there was a particular question that somebody wanted to ask. If there's any question, just make sure you're putting it out there. What one thing we'll talk about is, now that you've had this experience of managing, sort of having these different eggs in your basket. What would you say is your, not your favorite in that sense, but what is it that is giving you that like really gives you that mojo in that sense, that what is it that really makes you wake up and be like, yeah, like today is this day and I really want to go at it?
I think I'm going to pick two things. One from the conversation that you were having before about having these variety of things, and how do you kind of balance that, and how do you pick those things. I think firstly, what gets me up and going every day is variety. I'm a sucker for challenges and variation and new things. Like I'm great with, throw me in a completely new situation and I will thrive. Give me the same old boring stuff to do every single day, I will drown. So I love that sort of thing in my life. But in terms of these sort of projects that you were talking about and people being able to do this in this time, I think it's really how you approach your life, in the sense of where do you draw your walls. When you see yourself, what do you, because everybody has a box around them. My box is, say, 2 feet by 2 feet. One person's box is 10 feet by 10 feet. One person's box is, let's say, 15 by 15. And it's really about that expansion. When you decide that you could be anything and anyone, you could literally be anything and anyone. 2 weeks back, I thought I was not going to be able to write ever, and I started doing this creative writing course online, and I did a poetry course after that, and I've been writing lots of stuff after that. I mean, given who I was just 3 months back, or let's say last December, I announced to my family I'm going to be writing a book. I've never written anything before. I have no history of it. I have no experience in it. I barely think I can make proper sentences sound right with grammar and everything. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it. I have no idea what I'm writing about, but I'm doing it. But it's really about that box. If I decide that I'm seated in the box which says I'm not a writer, I'm not a singer, I'm only an entrepreneur, or I'm only a yogi, then I remain in that box. But if you kind of expand that and you say that, well, this is not my identity and this is also not my identity. A lot of these experiments that I do are to break identities that I form. When I get too stuck to one identity where, okay, I'm only going to be this, I break it instantly. And the way I keep changing it, which is also very, very firmly grounded in yoga, because I don't allow myself to get identified with my roles, because I change them so often. Like I'll be like, okay, this is also possible, or that's also possible. Even a yoga teacher is an identity. It's a very clear identity. And when you get entangled with that identity, that I'm a teacher, oh my God, it's hell. Because throughout your day, you are kind of trying to live up to that identity role that you've created for yourself. You know, a teacher must do this, must not do this, must speak like this, must
and
not.
And the self-imposed standard, actually.
Yeah.
And that's only nobody other than you is imposed on yourself.
Absolutely. And that box was created by you. So every time that I identify that, oh my God, I've put myself in this new box right now, I break it. I'm like, okay, throw me into something completely unrelated. So, and you know what happens when you switch this is usually when you go to something unexpected, unrelated, you always start as a beginner, as a nobody. And in that process of growing from nobody to a little somebody who may have some skill or some accomplishment, you have to start without an ego, and your ego breaks. You know, your sense of I, or my this thing, or my studio, or my practice, or my sadhana, or my yoga, or my spiritual experience, or my history. Well, you're nobody in your singing class, so you might as well, you know. So, and I think this process of learning new things all the time keeps you very grounded on very humble and very grounded. So you don't really start climbing this tree and you start believing of yourself as something else. So that's
and it's so refreshing, right? Because you're not letting things stick to you in that sense, and carrying that burden of being attached to each identity also. Okay, there was one.
Sorry.
No, so there was one question around how do you handle creative blocks?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Yeah. If you don't have the answer, I don't know who does.
No, actually, I've hit them so many times in my life. So many times. I think in the creative process, especially more so for the creative people, when society kind of looks at you, there's anyway a big question about like, what do you even do? You know, there's a question mark and an exclamation mark. Like, what do you do with your life? Because you don't conform to that set of, I work from this time to this time, I get this much income per month, or my taxes are filed at this day. So anything which doesn't fit into a very, very structured format, people begin to question like, what you know, what's happening with you. So in this process, hitting creative blocks is very, very, very normal. In fact, I was talking to a friend today, and he is a musician himself, and he's talking to a bunch of musicians around, saying that now you're at home, how is the making of music coming along? You have so much time, you're at home, so you can obviously be making music all the time, aren't you? And the musicians were saying that actually it is the opposite. We're having such a hard time to make music because we have no stimuli. There's nothing outside to inspire us. There's nothing that is leading us to this form of creativity. Creativity is not something that comes all the time. You get it in spurts. Sometimes you get it in the middle of the night. Sometimes you stay up the entire night. Sometimes you don't have it for 2 months or 3 months. Or like you could be an artist and you could not, like I've been a photographer and I have gone for months at stretch without touching my camera. And those are the times when I start to question, am I even good enough? Was this something I ever even liked? Or how did I even call myself a photographer when I have touched a camera? And this happens to every person in every creative field. Honestly, what really helps is the same thing I was talking about. Learn a new thing. Forget that skill. Forget that you were a writer. Forget that you were an artist. Forget that you were a singer. Forget that part. Just keep it aside. Throw it for a while. And pick something completely unexpected. You know, if you've never maybe say done skateboarding before, pick up a skateboard and go.
Wow.
You start with something new, and you go with growing in that new field. You pick new skills, you become open, you let go of that ego, you let go of that sort of baggage that you were carrying of that creativity or that skill, and you start afresh. And in that process you will learn that maybe it becomes slowly along the way easier to come back to what you were running away from. So it's perfectly fine if you go through blocks. I've gone through blocks that have lasted months, sometimes years with things. But being harsh on yourself or judging yourself or saying, oh, you're not good enough, or or letting other people's opinion about you affect you, that's definitely of no help. So just challenge yourself with something else for a while. Maybe that skill comes back, in the same skill that you have.
Advice. That is brilliant advice that I'm going to take for myself as well. Okay, this was so great, Abhay. I can't tell you. This was like each minute of this conversation has been like gold. You've been dropping these truth bombs and like these solid nuggets of wisdom. And definitely, we're going to be saving the live on the profile, and you'll be able to go through it later as well. Because I feel like there's so much in here that you can unpack it by rewatching it as well. Okay, so let's quickly do the fun section as well because I don't just want to end on this. So I want to quickly work this in. So you remember the game Never Have I Ever?
Mm-hmm.
So
I do.
So I'm going to ask you 5 things and you have to say if you have or you haven't. And they're like a little bit of a yogic twist to it. Okay, shall we go?
Go for it, I'm ready.
Okay, so never have I ever broken a mandala for practice.
I definitely have multiple times.
Okay.
More often than I would like to remember.
Okay. Never have I ever forgotten empty stomach condition.
Never.
Okay, yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
Never have I ever done sadhana at midnight. That the Sandhya Kala, midnight Sandhya Kala.
Does meditation count? I think
you might have spilled over in that sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I may have.
Okay, cool. Never have I ever lost almost come to the verge of losing my temper during the class. Like getting irritated or...
I have. I have. It was
that's
hard.
the thing with the Isha teachers, right? You can never see it on their faces or in the way they are. But maybe inside there is
no clue. You know what happened when I lost my temper? My demo person fell asleep in the middle of an asana, snoring. And I was just looking there with a smiling face saying, and now we're going to... So, yeah.
What has happened with me is that my demo person demonstrated like the next Angamardana practice instead. Okay, we have just 2 minutes remaining, so I'll quickly wrap this up.
Yeah.
Okay, the last thing is, never have I ever thought about not doing my sadhana.
Oh, I definitely have. A lot.
I know. Some days it's just such a struggle, right? And I know I've been like, we talk about, how important it is to do a sadhana. But people don't realize.
Well, the struggle is real for all of us. It's not just people teach every single day. You have to get up and be like, I'm doing this.
So I'm so glad you said this because, it eases the pressure off of us also because I was like, everybody around me seems to be having unimaginable levels of commitment and energy and here I am like working at it with my own struggle.
All about keeping it real. Like, just keep it real because I'm human, man. I get these things too. Yeah. Like, I have periods where sadhana is difficult and I have periods where sadhana is on fire.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is.
That is so great. We have like 55 seconds remaining. Abhaya, I want to give them to you to because for me personally, this has been such a brilliant live. I have enjoyed every bit of it. And I can't thank you enough for like giving such amazing advice and words of wisdom and truly your clarity around things is admirable and also imitable, I would say, inimitable. So,
Kanika, thank you so much. These are very, very kind words, and truly, you make me seem like this is far grander than my actual life. It is not as exciting as you've made it sound, but thank you. This is truly been very heartfelt. Like every word that you've said, I've really felt it and received everything very genuinely. So, thank you.